Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to our latest explainer. Today, we're going to unravel what I honestly think is the ultimate economic paradox. Most of us have been taught that inflation, prices going up, is the big bad wolf of the financial world. But what if I told you that central banks are actually terrified of the exact opposite? Today, we're breaking down why a world where everything gets cheaper could literally be one of the most dangerous things for an economy.
Right off the bat, it's the most natural question in the world. If rising prices are bad, shouldn't falling prices be an absolute win? I mean, cheaper groceries, fantastic. A cheaper car, amazing. A cheaper house, yes please. When most people hear the word deflation, they instantly just assume it's the exact opposite of inflation in every single positive way. But economists, well, they look at this quite differently. In fact, many central banks lose way more sleep over prolonged deflation than they do over standard inflation. And in this explainer, we're going to figure out exactly why.
So let's start by totally grounding this concept. What exactly is deflation? Very simply, it's the general decline in the prices of goods and services over time. If inflation means prices go up, deflation just means prices go down. Let's say a new TV costs $1,000 this year, but it drops to $950 next year. Or maybe a house costs $300,000 today, but drops to $285,000 next year. If this trend happens across the board, everywhere in the economy, that is what economists call deflation. At first glance, your money is going further, your purchasing power is up. Sounds like a total win, right? But the real danger actually isn't the falling prices themselves.
No, the real issue here is the massive shift in human psychology. It completely changes how we behave. Let's imagine you're planning to buy a brand new laptop. Today, it's $1,000, but because of deflation, next month it's probably going to cost $950. So what do? Well, you wait. Unlike inflation, where you want to buy stuff now before it gets more expensive, deflation trains us to postpone our spending. Now scale that up. Imagine millions of everyday consumers making that exact same decision to just wait. People delay buying, businesses delay expanding, investors delay investing, and suddenly the entire economy just grinds to a halt.
And that collective waiting game leads us straight into one of the most dangerous traps in all of economics, the deflationary spiral. It's essentially a vicious feedback loop where falling prices cause behaviors that make prices fall even further. It's like a giant line of dominoes. Domino 1, prices fall. Domino 2, consumers, like you and me, delay spending. Domino 3, because nobody's buying anything, businesses see their sales and revenue absolutely tank. Domino 4, to survive, those businesses panic. They cut costs, freeze hiring, and eventually start laying people off. Domino 5, those newly unemployed workers now have way less money to spend, which triggers the final domino. Overall demand drops even more, forcing businesses to slash prices again just to survive. And the cycle repeats. This spiral is exactly what terrifies economists.
Now you might be wondering, what actually kicks off a nightmare spiral like this in the first place? Well, there are a few main triggers. A super common one is just weak demand. If people get spooked about the future, say unemployment is ticking up or a recession is looming, we naturally tighten our belts and spend less. Businesses get fewer orders, so they drop prices to lure customers back. If that fear sticks around, boom, the deflationary pressure begins. Another massive trigger? A shrinking money supply. If a major financial crisis hits, banks get scared. They stop lending out money, making credit super hard to get. With less money sloshing around to borrow and spend, the whole economic machine slows down and prices start to sink.
Okay, actually scratch that. I need to add a really important exception here. Not all falling prices are bad. This is a huge misconception. Think about technology. We're constantly getting better at building computers and TVs, making them way more efficient and cheaper to produce. So the retail price drops. You get a cheaper product, but the tech company is still totally profitable because their manufacturing costs went down too. The economy keeps humming along. That is good deflation, driven by healthy productivity. The panic only sets in when we see bad deflation. That's when prices are plummeting strictly because nobody is buying anything, and the broader economy is actively shrinking.
To really wrap our heads around the next hidden trap of a deflationary world, I want you to picture a specific number. Let's say a typical bank loan of exactly $100,000. When you take out a loan, that debt is fixed. It's set in stone. You owe 100 grand, no matter what crazy things the broader economy decides to do. Keep that fixed number in the back of your mind as we look at what happens when the prices around it start falling.
This brings us to a crushing concept known as debt deflation. Okay, so you have that fixed $100,000 debt, but suddenly bad deflation hits. The entire economy takes a pay cut. Your wages drop, or if you run a business, your sales dry up. But remember that debt? Yeah, the bank doesn't care about deflation. Your monthly payment hasn't changed one bit. So because you're earning less money, paying off that exact same loan suddenly feels like carrying around a boulder. The dollars you need to pay it back are literally harder to get. This creates massive financial stress. People start defaulting on their loans, spending plummets even more, and it's like pouring rocket fuel right back onto that deflationary spiral we talked about.
To really see how devastating this can be, we don't have to guess, we just have to look at history. The most famous example is literally the Great Depression of the 1930s. The economy just collapsed, demand dried up, prices absolutely cratered, businesses failed left and right, and unemployment skyrocketed. Deflation wasn't just a symptom, it was the engine driving that crisis. For a more modern example, look at Japan's lost decades throughout the 90s and 2000s. They got stuck in a rut of extremely low inflation and stubborn deflation. People wouldn't spend, and the economy just essentially stalled out for years. Modern central bankers study Japan obsessively because it proves one terrifying point. Once a deflationary spiral starts, it is incredibly hard to stop.
And this historical track record is exactly why today's central banks practically obsess over keeping a safe distance from deflation. It's why they actively aim for an inflation rate of about 2%. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, if inflation makes things expensive, why not just aim for perfectly 0%? Well, that 2% acts as a crucial safety buffer. It's like a guardrail on a cliff. A little bit of predictable inflation gives the economy room to breathe and adjust, keeping us safely away from accidentally tumbling over the edge into that destructive deflationary spiral.
Let's do a quick reality check before we wrap up to clear away any lingering confusion. First, deflation doesn't mean every single price tag drops at the exact same time. Some things might get cheaper, while others stay the same or even get a bit pricier. Economists are looking at the massive, big-picture trend. Second, and this is absolutely crucial, cheaper stuff on the shelves doesn't help you one bit if your paycheck is shrinking, or worse, if you lose your job. Widespread bad deflation almost always goes hand in hand with an incredibly weak economy. At the end of the day, a healthy economy isn't about cheap prices. It relies on strong employment, growing wages, and businesses actually creating value.
So, if you take away absolutely nothing else from our explainer today, please let it be this. Lower prices are not automatically a good thing, and higher prices are not automatically a bad thing. Context is literally everything. What really matters is understanding why those prices are changing and how those shifts are ultimately trickling down to impact businesses, jobs, and everyday people like you and me.
Which leaves us with one incredibly fascinating high-stakes question. If a deflationary spiral is a giant trap that freezes up an entire economy, how do central banks actually pull us out? How do you convince people to start spending and borrowing money when human nature is screaming at them to just wait? Well, it all hinges on one of the most powerful tools in all of modern finance. In our next explainer, we are going to dive deep into how central banks use interest rates to shock a stalling economy back to life, and exactly what it means for your own wallet. Trust me, you are not going to want to miss it.